Hey, my name's Chris, and as we started in the last video, we're doing some work on how the Spirit of God helps us enact the work of racial justice in the world. And today I want to introduce you to the reconciling Spirit of God. So there's this encounter in the book of Acts, Acts 10, that involves these two main characters. One is Cornelius. He's a Roman army officer, but he's a Gentile, so he's not a part of the Jewish Christians. At this point in time, the church has begun, so to speak, but it does not involve Gentiles really at this point in time. And so Cornelius has this vision where he's supposed to send some people to this town of Joppa and find this guy named Peter, which is one of the disciples, kind of like running the church deal, doing his thing. And so he sends some guys after this vision to go get Peter. Well, in the meantime, Peter is on the roof of this building at an actual scheduled time of prayer, and he's praying. And while he's praying, he has this crazy vision where God shows him this sheet with all of these animals. You can read it in Acts 10 because it's kind of wild and it won't make any sense, but that's okay because it didn't make any sense to Peter either. Peter didn't know what it was about when this happened. And so as Peter's done praying, he's perplexed. He says, God, what are you talking about? Don't kill, don't eat, what? Unclean, I don't know. And so these people knock on the door, and he knows he's prompted by the Spirit of God to go to those people. And it's these men that are with Cornelius. And so he joins them, and they go to Cornelius's house, this Gentile home, which again, there's this unique distinction. It's not apples to apples when we think about the racial injustice that our country has experienced for hundreds of years, but it's the same concept of some are in, some are out, some are for, some are against, us and them. Like it's this, I guess it's injustice is really what it is. And so he goes to Cornelius' house and he knocks on the door. And for Peter, he's never in his life been inside the home of a Gentile. And at this moment in time, he knocks on the door because the Spirit of God has prompted him to go to this space. And he crosses a boundary that somebody at some point in time had said you should never cross. God is wiping that boundary away. And Peter goes, at the prompting of the reconciling Spirit, into the house of Cornelius. He gets into the house. Cornelius falls at Peter's feet and is like, oh, I'm so excited you're here. And Peter's like, dude, chill. We're both people, both humans. Like he's already got a picture of this one humanity that God is after to reconcile them to one another. So he stands them up. They go into like the living space, and it turns out Cornelius has a whole bunch of people in the house. All his friends and family are packed in, and Peter still doesn't know why he's really there, just that the Spirit has prompted him to go there. And so Cornelius says, well, now you got to tell us about this Jesus. And so Peter starts preaching. Because that's kind of what Peter does now that he's got the Spirit in him, and he starts preaching in the middle of his sermon about Jesus. The Holy Spirit falls on the Gentiles, which blows the mind of Peter and the 6 guys who were with him. They never thought those people could also have the Spirit of God in them, could also be a part of the new humanity that God is forming. And so at that moment, it's this beautiful worship celebration of God's one humanity being reconciled to one another. And they're like, well, hey, the Spirit fell on them. They've got the Spirit of God in them now. I guess we got to baptize them. Peter looks to his guys. He's like, what do you guys think? And they're like, well, I can't deny that either. That was amazing. And so they baptize him. And then Cornelius and his family say to Peter and his guys, he says, hey, would you just stay with us a little longer? So Peter's already broken a boundary that had been set up. He says, would you stay a little longer? And it says that they stayed and they ate together for a couple days. Peter broke boundaries and broke bread with the very people who said, we're on the outside looking in. They were reconciled together because the Spirit brought them there, and ultimately because they shared meals together. How then will you join, as you think of all of those who are separated from one another, specifically as it pertains to racial injustice, how will we join the reconciling Spirit? How will we be people who cross boundaries and break barriers and break bread with those who maybe somebody's told us God's not for those people or with those people, so that we might be reconciled together as God's one true humanity?